Pickleball is hot, which is why I flew across the globe to sign its next superstar. Nice one, Kristoff. He's got dinks for days, and I get points on points on points traveling with my Amex Business Platinum card. Exquisite form.
Earn 5 times points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com with an Amex Business Platinum card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Built for business by American Express.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com. The entire crew is here as we are looking to update you on the latest goings-ons in the Oklahoma football program. Brent Venables taking over, making offers, working on this second signing period, working on transfers, and we've got all kinds of stuff floating around. You got the rumors from the Twitter spaces. It just takes everything to a whole new level, although if you've been on Soonerscoop.com, you know everything that's going on, which is something that we try and tell people. But it's just one of those things, guys, like recruits. There's been, Josh, I guess, and Bob, even you follow so much social media. This has been as vocal a recruiting class maybe as we've seen, I don't know, maybe since the Theo Weiss, Spencer Rattler, Austin Stogner, in terms of just, it seems like they're really kind of, getting everybody involved through social media.
Yeah, and in terms of putting it out there, where this feels like stuff that they do all the time in their group messages for years and years, but they never actually, put it out on social media so that people have an idea of what those guys are saying to each other. And what you are also finding out, it's all of them. So that's nice to see too. It's not like it's a little cliquish, it's just offense or just defense or just guys from this area. It feels like all of them are engaged, and to me, that might be the only thing I read from all those tweets and stuff is that all 14 of those guys are connected and they're willing to do whatever it takes to help this class out.
What's funny about it to me is that these guys, it wasn't really that way through most of their recruitment. Like, this was a fairly quiet class, not a lot of crazy, Twitter stuff like all the locks and the LOLs and all that stuff. Like, you didn't see a lot of that really until until Lincoln Riley left. And you talk about friendships, family, whatever. You don't really know where that stuff is until you kind of go through something. And I think these guys kind of went through something and now are a little tighter group. There's, I think, communication from what I can gather and, what everybody sees is better than it's ever been. Because I think these guys, there was a feeling, and I kind of joked about it last week with the Xavier Bryce and Kobe McKenzie stuff, where you thought this guy was with you, and then the next second, oh no, he's gone. And it was kind of that feeling where I think these guys, kind of felt like everything just kind of got weeded out and, okay, this is who we are. These are our guys.
I think something like that has to galvanize a group, doesn't it? Like, to be completely blindsided like that. And there's a certain level of bonding, trust, stuff that comes together when you do go through something like that.
It either tears you apart or brings you all together. And we saw the ones that left, and then we saw, it started with DeAndre Moore, funny enough, with a 2023, but then, Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor, Robert Spears-Jennings, all those guys puffing their chest out saying, we're not going anywhere. And if you're with us, then you shouldn't be trying to look elsewhere because nothing is going to go off track with the direction of where we're about to go. And
who knows if the situation would have been different too. I almost wonder if that group wasn't as tight, if they were able to get somebody like a Kobe McKenzie to flip back. I know that, Brent Venables and Kel Gundy and their in-home and that kind of stuff always played a big role in that. But if he didn't have a good relationship with those guys, I would imagine that maybe things don't turn out like they have.
Well, this just in, OU no longer recruiting selfish players. Is that our headline?
Is that what the pod is going to be called?
Now that Lincoln Riley is gone, no more selfish players.
These players would get Santa Claus's presents.
Well, they certainly wouldn't rob Santa Claus. I know that.
These players aren't afraid of a toy drive, unlike Lincoln's players.
God.
So, well, let's catch up. I mean, let's. We had signing day. We had the signing day pod. I know, there's been a lot of stuff around Jared Kanak. Is it Kanak? Kanak? Do we know?
I've said Kanak. Yeah. I've said both.
I've gone with Kanak
too.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in the OU people search, which Bob was just waiting, he was just ready to pounce to find out when he was going to enter.
Any idea how many times I searched that damn name?
Enter the OU people search, because that's one of the tools that you use to find out, if someone might be transferring or whatever. And his name finally appears, and then it disappears. And I do know that you can opt yourself out of the people search if you want to, which apparently is done.
Spencer Rattler, yes.
Yeah. So, all signs point to that. But outside of that, Josh, what else do we want to just kind of reveal on the pod that has happened in terms of the 2022 class, and whether it's early enrollees, late signing, or main signing class, whatever we want to call it now? What are the developments there since signing day?
Yeah, I guess with the Kanak stuff, I guess we should go into some of that. I don't think that there's a lot of secrets left in this thing. I think Baker Mayfield kind of blew the top off of any doubt over what was going to happen here. I know Teddy and Gabe have talked about it on their podcast, and obviously Teddy and Brent having a pretty special and close relationship. I think, there's only so much, kid gloves we need to play with it anymore. That has been the plan for a while, and the plan was for Jaron Kanak was not going to sign. I said on signing day he was not sent a letter of intent. Brent Venables is legitimately he is very earnest about we were not going to recruit Clemson guys, and it sounds like guys. There's no other way to say it. He tried to tell Jaron Kanak to go to Clemson. Like you committed here, you go there. Go try, and it just the kid wants to play for Brent Venables, and at some point. Like we've talked about on the pod, and I know plenty of others have talked about it as well, at some point, it's got to be about what the kid wants, too. It can't just be what's best for Clemson all the time.
Especially when things change at a school.
Exactly.
The whole you commit to the school, not to the coach, that's not realistic. Kids commit to the coach as much as they commit to the school. They commit to the situation, and the situation had changed for Jared Kanak.
If that was true, coaches wouldn't need to recruit. They'd just say, here's all the information on our university. Come tour anytime you'd like. No, that's not the way it works. Human relationships are the foundation of all of this, and you can tell yourself whatever else, but that's just not true. He's a small-town Kansas kid that was going to Clemson. What other connection was there than Brent Venables? That was it. And obviously Brent's, his reputation as a linebackers coach. So it makes all the sense in the world. He'll enroll, to my understanding, he'll enroll in January. Obviously will then go on scholarship. Oklahoma's not getting the great fortune of he's just going to choose to live a pauper's life and be a walk-on. He'll be on scholarship and all that will handle itself. But, obviously a huge win for Oklahoma. And for those that would ask, Josh, these things, why wouldn't you go ahead and put him on the commitment list? I know we've had a lot of people on the board ask. It's just because him showing up in the people search on OU EDU, and I know some people within, we all know the guy I'm thinking of, within that side of Oklahoma's academics, and they'll tell you, him being there doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean he's been approved. It doesn't mean anything along, there's still steps he has to clear. And the other side of it is he could still go to Clemson. He could change his mind. He could pull a Brock Vandegrift on, New Year's Eve and decide, you know what? I don't think that's what I want to do. I'm going to change and, whatever. for whatever reason. That's not what's going to happen in all likelihood. But until he makes a public statement or he is officially bound to Oklahoma by the second he walks into a class at OU, he is on scholarship, he is an enrolled student, and then it's all locked in. And then we'll add him to the commitment list, and everybody can rejoice about Oklahoma getting those recruiting points and all that stuff. But that's why we're not doing it, because it's not an official situation. He hasn't signed a letter of intent, and he hasn't come out and said, this is what I'm doing.
Is it? I hate to put it like this. Isn't it kind of frustrating in a way, the way that this has gone down, though? Like, why won't you just announce it? And why won't I don't know. It's his decision. It's the way that he wants to operate, or is it from something else? Is this the way that Brent wants him to handle it? Or is that something we just flat out don't know right now?
I would guess it's Brent, honestly, because all he's
Isn't
doing
that whole thing frustrating,
is hearing questions about it.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, you can't be open. You can't be open and honest about what is really going on, because it's not. It doesn't feel like it's your story to tell. And I had a lot of people on Twitter tell me that on Tuesday that I'm ruining the kid's moment. So, it's hard, because like you feel like you have a great understanding of the whole story, but it's like, okay, they got to do a little bit. They've got to say some stuff too to kind of get the ball rolling.
I'm sorry, but in this situation, there is no ruining the kid's moment. I mean, if you've decided where you're going to go, you should just say. I mean, we bend over backwards to let kids have their moments. It's a moment. It's something for you and your family and your friends to celebrate one day, and then it's over. It's like a birthday. And then no one cares until you're out on the field making plays. That's just the plain truth about it. I mean,
he's having a commitment month. People have birthday months. He's having a commitment.
Yeah, don't we all hate those people, the birthday month people? And it's the same thing. Shout out
Tiffany McQuistion.
It's the same thing, and maybe this gets us into another subject matter, but it's the announcing a national game. I mean, I know that's a big attraction of the games. I don't want to piss off the Under Armour Bowl or the All-American Bowl, but for whatever reasons, they want to be able to go to break and tease. Oh, coming up next, we're going to have a big announcement from a 5-star, and but then you've got these kids. It's like, who was the first person that you can remember doing that, Josh, that signed and then waited until they're announced? Was it Buki that you were associated with?
But it was Benito and Buki, because they're both 2018 class members.
DeMarco did.
Benito's the one that's
going all the way back to the Army game.
No, because DeMarco couldn't sign early.
Oh, right, there was no.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, but
2018 class was the first time they had that option.
Yeah. But no. What's funny is, I guess maybe it's because of the Louisville thing. I forget Buki did the same. Like as Bob said, it's like, oh, that's absolutely right. I always associate it with Benito. Like that's absolutely my connection to that scenario.
Because, OU's they've almost had it every single year. Jaden Hazelwood, Chandler Morris, you had Buki and Benito. Last year was the first time, and I don't want to bring it up, but we thought Tristan Lee was going to be the OU guy that was going to make the announcement. So it wouldn't shock us if it happens again, because OU's had a track record of going this direction.
I still, a year later, thank you, Savion Byrd. You saved our site from burning to the ground. That was one of the worst signing days I've ever been involved with.
And now it's up to him to keep the offensive line from burning to the ground.
Yeah,
no pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I'm really interested to watch Marcus Hicks. I'm very interested to see where that goes.
I've asked about Marcus Hicks recently, and I don't get a good or bad. I just don't get he's going to be a guy. Like, I don't get that report. Everything that I hear is that Bill expects Savion Byrd to make that jump and be the guy next year. Like of all the guys that are out there, like Savion Byrd is the guy that they're putting their hopes behind, and not Marcus Hicks at this point.
I could live with that. I think he's got more upside than anybody in that offensive line room. I don't think there's any question.
Wanye Morris comes along. There's your two tackles.
And then Bray Walker returns from the portal, right?
Yeah, I mean,
he
go ahead,
is, but he isn't. This is another one of those things. Like
he's still technically in the portal.
Okay, he's
still
technically
in, but his father has come flat out and said, "Yeah, we're coming back, OU." And
that could be just a paperwork thing too, right? Like he just needs to turn it in, and they need to get it done. And maybe the compliance office is just an issue of getting it out. But somebody like a Theo Weiss, who the story breaks on Friday night, he's officially out of the portal.
So he went in, but then he came out. Unlike the Fansville thing, we didn't get a punter in return for Theo Weiss.
Correct.
Theo's had such a crazy year. It'd be so nice if he was able to put something together and you really have a good 2022.
I think out of all, this is an incorrect statement. Out of all those 5 stars that came in that year that weren't arrested and kicked off the team, he's had the most baffling OU career because there was so many good. There's some really good stuff there. You just haven't seen consistency, and I think out of all those guys, you believe that Theo could be the best player, but he just hasn't had a chance to show it yet.
I think he's flashed more elite stuff than any of the other guys.
Yeah. He was really starting
Baylor
to come
game
along,
in Waco
at the end of 2020.
Yep. It
he
seemed
also
like
had
it
the
was
more
starting to come
baffling
together.
drop.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. It was like
weird because he's flashed the most, and then he's had the most opportunity to try to do something when he didn't.
Can we just take a moment while we're talking about that group to just say, Jaden Hazelwood, what the f***? Arkansas?
It is kind of weird that like it just happened overnight. Like, okay, and if he needs a reset and wants to get out of there, that's perfectly fine. I don't fault anybody for that. Sometimes a reset's good for everybody.
He took one visit and then signed with Arkansas.
Just very odd.
Arkansas.
Very odd. And to go to Arkansas,
it doesn't scream the school you go to get redemption as a receiver.
Well, you know they just told him, we lost Treylon Burks. You'll be the next Treylon Burks. Man, there ain't a lot of Treylon Burks walking around. He's a freak of nature.
By the way, did Luther Burden decommit after the game last night or get his LOI back? That quarterback, man, he had a wide open guy in the end zone on that 2-pointer at the end.
Just Josh pointed it out last night. He's like he was being crowned as like the next coming, and then misses an easy throw in the flats.
Rough looking.
That ended up being the biggest play of the game.
Guys, people love to say like, I could have done that. We legitimately could have made that throw. Like that's that's something anybody in this podcast could have completed. And I'm not, and none of us are special in any way. So that is,
it wasn't like he had somebody in his face or anything. I mean, it was just, and it was a quick
on time.
Throw.
Yeah. It was in rhythm. Like it all should have worked and it just didn't.
That running back, the look on his face after, like, what just happened? Like, I was right here, wide open. Nobody within 15 yards of me. And you sailed it. So, anyway, I'm getting us off track. Okay, so back to what's left in recruiting or what's developing in recruiting. And this is where all the rumors come about. But we do believe that there is like at least one silent commitment out there, right? I mean, are there more than that? Could there be more than that? I don't even know silent commitment, like silent signing. Like, is it possible that there's been a signing that hasn't been announced?
I think there are probably a couple of things out there that aren't officially, for the masses yet. But yeah, I like I said, I like where it's starting to look like OU might close pretty well in January. And I know, the Twitter spaces and all that stuff, and OU's gotten 18 commitments and all this craziness. We'll see, and I know people get excited, and I totally get it. Like that,
and you got like Hayes Fawcett out there putting up stuff about Oklahoma's class. And I'm not calling you any names.
Hayes isn't wrong.
Don't get mad
at
me.
Hayes isn't wrong on this. Like, there are good vibes around Oklahoma recruiting right now. There absolutely are. But at the same time, guys, what I want you to consider is think of any school ever just talk about their recruiting is just rolling. There's not many schools getting 7 commitments in the matter of real commitments, called the coach, told him what the deal is, and we're in. Buddies talking to buddies or players being like, yeah, man, I'd love to play with you. That kind of thing. That stuff happens. And I get it. And I'm not shooting down the players at all. I get why they're into it too. It makes all sense in the world. I've watched this stuff for 20 years, man. Players tell players all kinds of stuff. And then when the rubber meets the road and they got to explain why they're going to go to OU or, Texas or wherever it may be, and they got to explain it to mom and their girlfriend and their coaches.
And they have to tell the coaches no, or they're not going to go.
Exactly. From some school that maybe they've known for 6 months or is closer to home or whatever it is, the story starts to change. And we'll see.
Momentum on December 22nd. What is that going to mean when the January contact period comes on? And do they actually make the visits? Yeah, it's fun to talk about, but we're so far away. That's why.
But you'd rather have the momentum than not have it. You'd rather have the excitement than not have it.
Sure,
absolutely.
Well, and I just
go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no, I was just gonna say from where they were 2 weeks ago, when it seemed like the sky was falling, to be able to rebound and to leave early National Signing Day with a top 10 class is kind of amazing in itself. And the close, obviously, the way that they did with Evers and Jaden Gibson, and obviously getting Kobe back and Alton Tarber. But to think what they could be come February if they're able to close, and you throw in somebody like a Devin Campbell maybe. And then you throw in an Ahmad Moten or an R. Thomas Mason. It's kind of incredible that they've been able to keep their head above water with everything that was going on around them.
Eddie, you got the names right. You flipped the order, but I want to own it in front of you to where you don't feel the R. Mason Thomas kid.
Yes.
For some reason, I want to make it Watson every time. I want to make it R. Watson Thomas, and I don't know why. I've done it. I've talked to the kid 10 times, and I keep wanting to make it R. Watson, and I don't know why. There's absolutely no connection in my life. So, but guys, in that vein, the guy that has impressed me, Miguel Chavis, looks like he might be a really good hire.
I'll say this:
there's been a good response.
And let me say this: credit the OU Daily for getting the contracts first. But with what they're paying Chavis, they have to think that he is a star in the making.
I mean, you've got to. And guys, we all know that players like coaches that have played. And he played at Clemson. He's familiar. He knows the deal. He grew up around Brent. All those things make a lot of sense. So, like I said, I was skeptical. I was. I just, he's a support staff guy, never been a full-time position coach, but we'll see. There's more to it than just recruiting, and even me as a recruiting guy, I'll own that. But I like the returns early on. And the thing that is sticking out to me is I don't think I knew how big Brent's footprint in South Florida was. They are hitting South Florida really hard, and the kids are responding in a big way.
They're not having to scratch and claw to try to get relationships. They're already there, and we're finding out very quickly how much that's going to help in the short term and in the long term.
The interesting thing about Chavis too is just the fact that it seemed like he was one of those guys that as soon as Brent takes the job, he calls Chavis first, you're coming with me.
Yep, that seemed like, because guys, Chavis had that on his page. 24 hours after Brent?
It
was very quick.
Yeah. Well,
almost too quick. He got skeptical.
And the thing about it is, you did. That's kind of one of those things dude, you're supposed to be doing that? I don't know if you got it all together or not. But, they needed somebody dynamic, especially Josh not having a defensive line or defensive backs coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's really handling double duty right now, where he's recruiting, Ahmad Moten and Alton Tarber and those kind of guys too. And I know we all saw, that he had a conversation with Cedric Roberts. So, I mean, he's really doing double duty, even though he's more of our Thomas Mason and the defensive end types, really like we saw with Jamar Cain. So I think, guys, and that kind of leads into an interesting question. Does it feel like to you they know who the defensive tackles coach is? Like, I feel like they know and aren't saying anything because we're not hearing anything about that. Like, it's been super quiet, and I find that really interesting because DB, you're hearing stuff. And defensive tackle, it's wonder, nothing.
Why haven't they announced it? Like, what's the holdup there?
Because it doesn't feel like it's a playoff team.
Right.
Like, maybe defensive back, we have that inkling, but we haven't really heard that with tackle.
And guys, the only thing, if it's not a playoff team, what's the only thing that makes sense?
Maybe the
Jaron Kanak situation.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe that coach has like a stay bonus where he has to stay till a certain date.
That's fair.
And he gets $100,000 or something.
That's fair. And that's a good point.
The David Patrick deal. Yes, sir.
I don't know who David Patrick is.
Assistant basketball coach.
Okay, then that's right on brand for me. Perfect.
Yes. It was a thing where OU couldn't announce because he would have lost some money at Arkansas if they did it too early.
That was a huge hire. I was really excited about David Patrick. Nobody heard that earlier part, so big time.
Okay.
Open the international door, Josh.
Sorry, coach. I actually watched some OU basketball. I watched some of the who did they play on Saturday?
Oh, Saturday.
UT Arlington on Sunday.
This is bad.
I watched some of it. I enjoyed it. I hung around for a few minutes.
Why don't you watch the games?
Baby.
Why don't you watch the games that are good, Josh, instead of watching the crap ones? You're not helping anybody with that. Those viewing habits.
I know. Believe me, I was with my family who literally spent 30 minutes asking me OU questions. Like when I visit my family in Oklahoma in December, it is, and especially in a month like we've had, it felt like I was on the message board doing the board chat. Like, so what do you think about this? I'm like, here we go. And I spent 45 minutes just answering my family's questions and also hearing that none of them ever really liked Lincoln Riley. I wasn't prepared for that. You guys are living in it. I was not prepared for now nobody ever liked Lincoln Riley, and he was never any good.
Also, apparently too cheap to support you financially by subscribing to your site.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but my family's like, piss off, dude. We knew you when you were in diapers. Like, tell us what we want to know.
I feel like I need to bring this up because I was laughing to myself about this the other day. Speaking of you can't give gift subscriptions, by the way, if you're looking for that last minute Christmas deal.
Yes.
But so Josh and I have always had these ideas about how to market the site. And I swear to God, I don't know if you two know this, Eddie and Bob. Josh's dream for years. Do you know what I'm getting ready to say, Josh?
I don't, but I'm very interested.
Uh-oh.
For years was to have a Sooner Scoop mall kiosk to sell subscriptions in the middle of the mall.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea how we would even pull that off, but he loved that. He brought that up all the time.
Love that idea.
I kind of like that idea, too, over at Shepherd Bowl or something.
Some
nobody
wife
goes
walking
to the
around.
mall anymore. We're not investing in that.
I avoid the kiosk.
The kiosk is a big investment.
I can't get away from them.
You can get a phone cover and a Sooner Scoop.
Exactly.
In the same thing.
I mean, just picture the Christmas morning visual.
We will change
with their
the
new
screen on your phone and give you a year subscription to
exactly
OU
their new little OU phone case, and then they turn it on, and it opens to the page of Soonerscoop.com with fresh login information. It's like a damn commercial.
We'll set up right outside the iPhone store, the Apple store, where all the old people are waiting in line to get their computers fixed in the morning because they didn't want to get an appointment.
And grandma doesn't know what to buy grandpa because they've been together for 55 years, and they don't, that he has every tool he'll ever need. But you know what he doesn't have? He doesn't have a Sooner Scoop subscription. So, done and done.
That's going to be what, I'm going to have to give into that at some point for all the buffoonery that I put us through.
You will, just so you can be like, I told you that shit wouldn't work. I told you.
Yep, you got to show them. No way this is working.
Yeah. I may be in a position that, I don't get to make decisions for a while, so who knows? Depends on how quickly we can get the store going, we're very close.
Do not say close. PTSD still.
Oh, God. T-bow, bitch. Okay, so, is there something else that we need to hit that's big happening in recruiting?
Unless you want to talk about Parker.
I mean, do we want to count that as something different altogether? I mean, I guess
we should talk about the level of that, commitment and what that means, and maybe what that says about his position. Maybe
seems like a very good pick. Like on the surface, when I wake up to the news this morning, like that broke. I can't believe that you were up, Josh. Was it like almost at midnight last night?
Yeah, it's about 11:30.
Yeah,
I was dead asleep already.
I got a text from one of our buddies at Mizzou, and he sent it to Carrie and I at like 11:30, and I literally was okay. The kids are in the other room. I was moving the ELF kind of into its new position. And so I was like, and Laney can spell, so that's dangerous too. But anyway, I was moving that around, and I just happened to look at my phone before I headed to bed, and I was like, well, crap. And I was just right by my office door. I was like, well, let me go in, kind of see what I can come up with. And luckily had a few people hit me back real quick. But, I don't know if, there'll be some members here that read last night but haven't seen this morning. We've been able to confirm that. That's absolutely a legitimate take for OU. Last night I kind of hedged because I didn't know, and we always want to be careful about that.
No one followed him. No one with OU associate had followed this kid until this morning.
Which is crazy because he played for Joe John Finley in 2018.
And maybe
you would have thought Finley had just followed him from forever ago. Yep. That's that. I mean, and I don't think there's any question that OU is playing some things like that in the portal. It's not going to be as easy to track this bunch, in my opinion, as Riley and company, because they're, they want to do, they're going to go lo-fi. Like, it's going to be real low tech. They're going to, phone call conversation, stuff like that, I think is going to be more the norm than, hey, we're going to hit them up through DM all the time.
On the surface, it seems like a pickup at a position of need, that they need a guy to come in and be somebody. Even if Braden Willis were to come back, it's a position that, you're losing Austin Stogner, obviously, to South Carolina. You're losing Jeremiah Hall. And I think simply put, you don't know if Jason Llewellyn and Caden Helms are going to be guys that are going to be able to contribute from day one.
Yep. I would think, Jason, neither one of those guys are dudes you want to throw out there and be your starter on day one. And I don't mean that as offense to either one of those guys. They're young guys. It's very rare that you do have that situation where on a team good enough to go compete for a Big 12 title as a freshman, you're ready to help. Those guys are very few and far between. But at the same time, I think Llewellyn can help, and I think Helms in the right role maybe could, but they both have to get bigger, stronger, all that stuff. But this buys them some time. It takes a little pressure off, in my opinion.
By the way, when you said lo-fi, I thought of something else. I thought you were going in the direction of, evaluated recruits. I know you kind of caught some wind of this here and there, but how much time do you think this staff really is spending on trying to kind of turn over rocks and find some of those guys?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. That there is any doubt that OU was going to be involved in the portal, end it. Like, they're going, and I don't know, we'll see from year to year. But this year, guys, we talked about it. Like, they needed to be honest with themselves, and it sounds very much like they are being. It's not, out of principle, we're not going to do this. No, they're not playing that game. It is, we have needs, let's go find them and fix them if we can in the transfer portal. So I think there's a lot of due diligence being done where they're checking on guys and they may look into some guys and say, hey, kind of like I keep coming back to that quote Brent said during the introductory press conference that I thought was so perfect. Don't recruit your own problems, that kind of deal. So And guys, we all saw, something playing out here in state right now that we talked about for a couple of weeks, why OU wasn't involved with a certain player. And, now we kind of know what was going on there, what the concern was. And I think they're being very careful about stuff like that. But there's no question OU is searching the transfer portal for guys who can help.
Did the portal stuff just stem from Clemson's hardline stance, and they're not going to do that, in Dabo's stance, and then the Zach Evans stuff kind of came up, and there was people that thought, okay, well, Jeff Levy's in with Zach Evans, so Oklahoma's automatically going to be. But you're right. I think that it just comes down to they did their due diligence, and that just wasn't simply going to be a fit. And didn't he say something about, as far as the locker room, you're just not going to bring in guys that are problems?
Yeah, and when you go back to Brent, that first presser, he said the portals made it cool to quit. So people took that quote and they ran with it. And then he came back on signing and said they got to make sure they bring value to the locker room. And I don't think he changed his philosophy. I think it's just in the way that he presented the information. He's like, I get the portal is necessary, but we're only going to use it for guys that we actually think will bring value and character, not just on-field production, but everything else that comes with it.
It's just such a drastic change from the last 4 years when I always had to kind of point out to people like, Lincoln Riley might be kind of new age, but there's like an old school coach's soul inside of him somewhere, because he would say stuff every once in a while. You're like, okay, he kind of gets it. Like, he's a football coach. He understands a football team. Whereas Brent, he's just the opposite. Like, here is our culture. I'm throwing it out there. I'm almost telling you too much or emphasizing it too much over the fact that, we're player friendly and stuff like that. Because he is. I mean, he's a guy that players love him. They love to play for him. And then you bring in Jerry Schmidt and you're like, oh God, this is getting really old school really fast. And then Josh, you're talking about, they're not going to be tech savvy and all that stuff. It's just such a drastic change from what we've gotten used to the last 4 years that I think it's, for some people, they embrace it fully because that's what football is to them. It's, going out and giving up your life for your school if you can win a game. That's being overly dramatic, but you know what I'm saying. It's just that identity that people have that, it's like I remember seeing the Caden Helms tweet today, and Eddie pointed out the first response was from his mom, but then you had all these other olds like NIL is ruining the sport of football because he joked about.
Imagine
he was just joking that he should get some
that at somebody
NIL money because of all the recruiting that this class is doing. It was just a joke, but anyway, it's the hardos basically that I'm talking about. They embrace all this stuff. Whereas it does have to be a little bit of both, and finding that balance is what Lincoln Riley couldn't achieve. And can Brent, I think he's pretty good at, he's going to have the football stuff. Like the stuff that makes this team better, that has a good locker room, that doesn't have a bunch of me first guys, he's going to establish that at OU.
I agree 100%. That's just not him. I don't think he'd want to do the job. Guys, can you imagine him running the locker room in the way Lincoln Riley has? And I'm not saying Lincoln Riley was wrong to do. I mean, clearly he had a lot of success, but I just don't think Brent could work in that environment. I don't think that's how he understands football and how he understands a team should be built and operate.
And you know what I thought, Josh, about what we've talked about in regards to that? I go back to looking at leadership. And everybody's like, oh, the culture fell. And a lot of the Gabe and Teddy, and they talk a lot about the culture falling off. And but really, when Lincoln first got here, think of the leadership in that locker room: Baker Mayfield, Sterling Shepard. I mean, guys that lived and breathed. Orlando Brown. They had so many just big personality leaders on the team, and that's something they haven't had in a while.
Well, and you wonder, are they really missing on all the leadership guys, or were they doing a poor job of cultivating it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you can – I mean, as far as Lincoln goes, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a championship type team and not have great leadership. It's just, it doesn't work that way.
Well,
and you're right. I mean, maybe they didn't cultivate it. I think you have to say they absolutely did not.
Because what you feel like Isaiah Thomas, Jeremiah Hall, those guys can lead, but for whatever reason, so again, it goes back to that. It's like, I don't know if you got to teach them to lead. I don't know if that's the way I'm trying to phrase it.
But you had an entire team full of players, including those leaders. Like, you've heard Isaiah talk about it. You've heard Jeremiah Hall talk about it. Like that Texas game. Like, you actually had your best players actively rooting for your backup quarterback midway through the season to take over. Like, that, it was messed up from the whatever you say, like, the quarterback is the most important person on a football team. He just is. And if there's some, like, you have no chance if your quarterback is a shithead. You just have no chance.
Guys, can we talk about now the thing that Lincoln Riley kept going back to is, he was voted a team captain by all of his teammates. Was he? Was he really? I've heard a lot of different rumors about how that all kind of played out. That was. And I won't say I was in the obviously wasn't in the locker room, couldn't know. But I feel like now we can kind of say maybe that didn't play out quite the way it was presented. And I know Lincoln Riley would never, tell a lie to the media, CeeDee Lamb, Baylor, 6-hour decision, those kind of things. He would never be dishonest. But at the same time, there was a lot of buzz. I heard that Spencer Rattler just kind of got shoved into that leadership position when not many players on the team saw him that way.
I've seen a lot of workout videos from him lately. Shocker.
Guys, I don't know, but I hope Spencer Rattler goes to South Carolina and has a lot of success. It's not like a personal beef with him. I just think he got shoved into a position that he didn't deserve and didn't really fit his personality.
He's immature. I think he's immature. Yeah. I think that's it. Could be.
I think it makes him a bad guy.
He wasn't ready to be a leader. He wasn't ready to be a captain. He wasn't ready to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. He was not willing to take the steps. And it kind of goes back into the stuff that we talked about over the summer and even like the Doom podcast before the season, that he was not, if you're looking for a guy that's just going to sit in the tape room or the film room and break down film and try to get better, Spencer Rattler just wasn't that guy at Oklahoma. Maybe he turns into that guy. He needs to turn into that guy if he wants to take the steps. But he was not that guy.
No, he was an entitled brat. I mean, that's what he was. I mean, that's the best way to describe him. Entitled brat.
He was able to get away with it for a long, long time.
Do you think that Venables and Levy would even work to keep Rattler if he was in the situation Caleb Williams is in now? I don't know that they would.
No, I don't think so.
I think it would have been like, hey, we wish you best of luck. We'll help you with anything you need, whatever. No, again, nothing ugly. I don't see either of those guys operating that way, but I think they would have known right away this is not a fit.
I think that's fair. And it just kind of goes back into all the stuff that we had heard leading into the season and then throughout the regular season. It's just like, I think that he just did not handle things very well, but credit to him, when the move was made, everything that we heard was that Spencer Rattler handled it about as best as he possibly could.
So
he wasn't a distraction, I guess.
Question is, what happened in 2020 then? Because I felt like the second half of 2020, something clicked to where he became the guy, and it would all carry over. So, but I guess when you do look back, you heard Lincoln say, it was, Creed Humphrey. It was guys like that, and Spencer just focused on playing. And I guess I thought internally that he was becoming the leader in the second half of 2020, and that just clearly wasn't the case.
Well, and I don't want to say it was a mirage, Bob, but also look at the teams that they were beaten up on. They were simply just better than a lot of those teams. And then they beat a Florida team that was, I know that we give Dan Mullen a lot of shit for saying he had a JV team. If they had some of the players that were supposed to play in that game, it's probably a little bit of a different Florida team.
Well,
and they played really well.
Remember, that was part of the Doom pod, too, as we were saying how that offense would disappear at times and they'd blow leads and they'd let people back in it, and they never could finish people off. And it continued to be the same type of offense this year under Rattler. I mean, it was it TCU and Tech, the two games that, TCU kind of came back, but it was Tech that was the first time you saw that team play a team that you knew was at least halfway decent. It was like, okay, this looks like a team that can do something. And then it never played out.
Well, and much as we say, that defense changed its colors when Ronnie Perkins got back, much the same way with Ramondre Stevenson on the offense. That was a totally different team once he returned, and that run game just opened up.
By the way, I want to take a little time out here, tell you guys about our great sponsor, Dead Soxy. They got their holiday specials going on right now. You can get 20% off any order using the code HOLIDAY20. I believe, let me double check on this, but the more you spend, the more you save. So if you're wanting to get that wardrobe updated to start looking better when you set your New Year's resolutions, it's a good time to go ahead and check in with Dead Soxy. You get 25% off right now any order using code BOOMER. 30% off any order of $120 with the code HOLIDAY30. And if you're a big spender, you can get up to 40% off on any order of $240 or more with the code HOLIDAY40. So each tier's got a code that must be applied at checkout. Free shipping on all orders of $60 or more. And again, each order over $120 will also get a free mesh bag while supplies last. So you can stock your sock drawers and have a wonderful holiday season with our good friends at Dead Soxy, deadsoxy.com. That's DEADSOXY.com. And as always, stay soxy. All right. I don't know. Do you want to hit on kind of Holiday Bowl? I mean, there's not been a lot of access, not been really either. There's been a Bob Stoops press conference. But, we've got the holidays are here. You guys are going to be heading down to San Antonio the day after Christmas. Be the first press conferences happening then. We've seen like Texas.
With Brian Odom. It's
with
weird.
Brian Odom as the defensive coordinator.
And they are playing in the Alamo Bowl. I know it's the holiday season.
What did I say? Holiday Bowl? Yeah.
You said Holiday Bowl.
I've made that mistake so many times.
Diego.
Qualcomm
action? Didn't you say that was a shitty bowl?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It's not like it's not. I'm trying to think. What is the worst bowl?
Sweatpants.
Oh yeah, Russell Athletic or whatever, Camping World or whatever it is now. That's by far the worst. Holiday Bowl, beautiful place to go. It's just that it's like, because when they played in the Holiday Bowl, you've been to all these national championships and stuff and just rolled out the red carpet. And then, my God, like the 2008 national championship, still the most memorable bowl trip of all time. It was just fantastic. That's when OU lost to Florida. But I lost my train of thought there. The
Holiday Bowl,
Alamo Bowl, not the Holiday Bowl. You've had kind of some COVID issues creeping up. Texas A&M cancels their trip to their bowl game, and we're a little bit worried about that. I mean, it's going to be interesting, guys.
Isn't that shit kind of weird?
Players going home, being around other people,
you might not
traveling
know
more.
Sunday.
I mean, there's a possibility you guys could get down there and not have a football game to cover by the time you're done.
Stop that.
You're going to SeaWorld with a kid. What do you care? It's a vacation for you.
Now, what's going to be fucked up is if you get to SeaWorld and they tell you that Shamu has COVID. I have eaten
just
with
spraying
Shamu,
that water everywhere.
At the San Antonio SeaWorld.
You've eaten what?
I've eaten dinner with Shamu.
Oh, I thought you said you've eaten Shamu.
No. They did not serve well. It was actually, if I remember correctly, I was like 12 at the time, but we went for my little sister, and it was a quite pleasant time. I remember not wanting to be there.
Do they still have killer whales? Didn't they get rid of those? Didn't they make them get rid of those?
No, they still have them. They've basically decided they won't breed them any further. Like, they're not going to have any more. Like, they'll let what they have go through and kind of be part of the setup, and then that'll be it. So they're just not going to continue to breed in SeaWorld parks, I guess.
I'm going to get kicked out of SeaWorld. I'm going to try to release them. into the Gulf.
Well, just wait until the day after Bob's there. Let the girl enjoy her moment, and then you can start chaos.
Yeah, I'll go back.
Yeah, there you go.
Does Pearl even really understand the whole killer well? Does she know what they look like or anything? Is she fascinated?
No, but she loved the aquarium in Jenks.
Oh,
so we are pumped for this.
Interesting.
It is going to be kind of weird, just for the fact that there are so many parallels between OU and Oregon, and obviously, with Bob being back on the sidelines, you go back into the 2006 game. But at the same time, when they get to the game portion of Alamo Bowl, they're both like makeshift coaching staffs. Basically, they both have interim coaches. It's going to be played up by the Alamo Bowl folks as the first matchup between two 10-win teams, but 10-win teams that sort of have their own problems in their own right. It just, there's opt-outs with Kevin Thibodeau, obviously, and then the four defenders for Oklahoma. It's just, they kind of mirror each other a lot, do they not?
Yeah, Oregon's quarterback is not very good.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards, he got basically dominated by Utah in the last 2 games of the year.
Not Anthony Edwards.
Brown.
Anthony Brown.
Brown.
Yeah.
Why do I keep calling him Anthony Edwards? I've done that multiple times now.
By the way, how did that dude get into Army? And the defensive player for them, that dude is good. He's so tall, too. I can't remember his damn name. Aaron Carter, maybe? Something like that?
The one that beat Shaq?
Where did this come from?
We're just talking about
Josh.
You said Brown, and I was thinking of players, and I was like, God, that guy was really good last night. I wanted to give him a shout out. Oklahoma
how do we
Sooners
get
pod.
into a tall ass Army player?
I guess it's not the Air Force, though. You can't have tall players in the Air Force, but you could in the Army. So I just figured that would be a topic that you would enjoy, Josh, because you love weird players that just come out of nowhere.
Well, I like military academy, football. I was all in on that one last night, basically talking shit to people that if you weren't watching that game, you can't watch the bigger ones down the stretch because you
Which I agree with. I think that's a good take.
Yeah, you're either in for college football or you're not. So whatever.
You gotta put in the time. Like this afternoon with the Frisco Bowl, you got to put in the time if you're gonna.
Oh, here's Bob's damn excuse. Let's hear it, Bob.
Some of us were at Lloyd Noble Center.
What was going on there? Was there something? Was was it a concert? Did you watch the concert, Bob?
Alcorn State was setting back college basketball. Is what they were doing.
It's OU's defense back-to-back games setting back.
Alcorn State starts the season with 16 road games.
Oh my God!
Holy.
Yeah, that's what Moser was trying to bring up on a Tuesday. That it's hard to gauge this team because they never play at home.
Andre Carter, he was on the AP All-American team.
Okay.
Go watch some tape, Josh. You'll enjoy it.
I'll check it. Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, go ahead.
So, this game, I think a lot of it comes down to, with all these coaching changes and stuff, and who's coaching you. I think it's great that these coaches are coming back, but it's also going to be a kind of a reminder, like, yeah, you left us. If it comes down to it, and you got to get a 4th and 1 stop at the end of the game, like, how motivated is this defense going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Like, these games really are more about who really wants to be there, as much as 100%. It is who's got the better players.
But it kind of goes back to like the idea of like, is this group going to be galvanized as far as like the way that everything kind of unfolded? And you talk about, going out there and making a name for yourself if you're a young guy, if you're a Danny Stutzman, if you're a Shane White or whoever, Reggie Grimes, like
Clayton Smith,
yeah, like Clayton Smith, you're going to have to play. There's nobody to play rush edge with Benito and Caleb Kelly out. Like, what a better audition for some of these defensive coaches than going out there and kind of putting your balls on the table.
That's my thing. Like,
unless they don't have balls and they're transvestites playing, then that's a different story.
God, how do I follow that? The offensive
I just had to
guys,
go through sexual harassment training yesterday for corporate, so I don't appreciate that comment at all. I'm going to
we denounced that. Yep.
Report
but
I see.
The offensive guys, you get it. Like they feel like their guys pretty much stuck with them. Hey, we're all here. The defensive guys, and guys, we know there are plenty of players that listen to the pod. If I can tell you nothing else, you are auditioning for next year, and people will notice if you are half-assing it. Like, This is a real good opportunity to show Brent Venables and company that you give a shit.
And all those people on Twitter.
Whatever. The people on Twitter are still bagging on the OU coaches that are going above and beyond to come back and help out the team when they damn well don't have to.
I kind of think that will push people more, like the respect level for a Calvin Thibodeau, the respect level for a Brian Odom,
you would
Jamar
think,
Cain.
yeah.
I think that they would play harder because of that.
Guys, it's one of and we all do. We all have these arguments that we can't avoid. This is one of those triggers. If it shows up on my timeline, I'm mother effing people. Like, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You're an idiot. These guys didn't leave because they wanted to. But they've still got to make choices that are best for their families. Like, stop trying to make them jerks. And the guys that are like, do you trust Tebow? He's going to have those guys in the locker room. Yeah. Bob Stoops is
for you.
Like, yes.
Transfer portal.
Calvin Thibodeau and Brian Odom, who played for Bob Stoops, are going to turn around and knife him in the back. Knock it off. Like, stop.
See, that is totally Roy Manning's fault. That people even have that in their brains because I understand. Fans have seen it. Like, they believe that treachery.
They're vulnerable.
Yeah, treachery is amongst them. I mean, it's like anything could happen in their minds because of the shit that Roy Manning did.
Which I think it is notable. Like, there's a reason why he wasn't invited back to coach the quarterback.
I think it's more like there's a reason why he wasn't let back in the facility after that. Like,
sure,
guys, and anybody that thinks that was,
but that's neither here nor there.
If you are crafty in developing a master plot, you don't get caught by the high school senior. Like, if you're that fucking crafty, that wasn't crafty. That was just stupid. Like, it was just a dumb. And I'm not defending Roy Manning. It was a dumb mistake. Like, there's no other way to put that. And I mean, I know I've heard that he's, kind of said, oh, it was an error in communication or something. And, maybe it's explainable as that. But this wasn't some master plan. Stop.
And Josh, you hit on it. I mean, this is the thing for people that are upset. And look, there's some of you that listen to the pod that don't like it. Josh said it. It wasn't their choice to leave Oklahoma. In fact, I would say every single one of those coaches that's coaching in the game, and they haven't told me this, but I would be shocked, and I've heard, roundabout ways from different people, they never wanted to leave Oklahoma. And I would say this, if they had other options, well, Calvin Thibodeau's going to SMU, but I don't even know if they would be at USC if they had better options. Their defensive coordinator, that the guy that they work with, that they rely on, that gives them their jobs, he wasn't going to be retained. And he went to USC, so they had to follow their jobs.
Guys,
and by the way, here's the setup real quick, just for anybody that is wondering what the Alamo Bowl coaching situation is going to be. The co-OCs in the game, Kel Gundy, Bill Beatabo, and I understand that Kel Gundy is going to be calling the game offensively. Running backs, obviously, Mark Murray. Tight end, Joe John Finley. Offensive assistant, Connor McQueen. Defensive side, Brian Odom, obviously going to, and I thought this was kind of notable, is going to be up in the box calling the defense. Calvin Thibodeau, defensive line, Jamar Cain, DE, outside linebacker, and then a defensive assistant, Austin Woods, with Ryan Doherty still assuming the special teams coordinator role. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Guys, I was listening to pod the other day that Ryan Abraham was on, and he was like he did 40 minutes talking. Ryan Abraham, our good buddy, runs a USC website, does a great job. Ryan's always been a good friend of ours and works with us, and he and Carrie talk a lot. He said two really interesting things. One, he was of the opinion that if OU had beaten Oklahoma State and gone to the Big 12 championship, Lincoln Riley would not be USC's head coach right now. The other thing,
just amazing.
I thought that was a wild reality, but Ryan's plugged in. I believe for him to say it as confidently as he did, he had reason to believe that.
Was he just saying that USC would have moved on to another candidate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the way. I think they felt like the time was then. They had to make a call.
Wow.
The other side of it was when when Eddie was watching Alex Grinch get on that damn plane in the airport, Alex Grinch did not have a contract offer from USC.
Wow.
He just got on that plane because he knew that. I mean, and I don't blame Alex Grinch. Like he
had no other
knew
option.
He wasn't going to be retained. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's okay. I'm not, but I mean that's the reality these guys are living in. They're having to live from minute to minute, making these decisions that everybody. I mean, like we don't, guys. Look at us. I mean, like we're semi-public, but we don't have to make job decisions where everybody's going to hate us or love us depending on what we do, and everybody knows what went on in our decision-making process and all that stuff. These guys are living in the public eye and still having to make decisions that are best for them and their family, and people are ripping them for it. I don't understand it. You can be mad at Lincoln Riley all you want. That's fine, whatever. But these other guys, they're just playing the cards they were dealt, man.
I don't think that I would ever say that, like, Lincoln Riley, if he had to go back and do it all over again, he wouldn't make the decision, because I don't know that for a fact. But I have talked to some people over the weekend that kind of basically insinuated that he has some regrets in how it was handled, obviously, because of the way that it has been viewed by the Oklahoma fan base, which I think is probably pretty obvious.
You mean the fact that he wishes he would have done it differently because everybody fucking hates him and he knows it?
100%.
I have been surprised with the staying power of the hatred. Like it is
He's
strong.
not welcome back
still.
here for a while.
Yep. It's going to be a long
Straight
time
up.
before he'll feel comfortable in the state. I don't think there's any question. And I, guys, and as much as I love it, like I kind of hate, like hate him, whatever. But like, if I was him, I would feel awkward in the state. Like I would feel almost uncomfortable, like being with my family and stuff. And that's awful. Like nobody should have to feel that way about it. But like at the same time, him having an expectation that he's going to not get booed at an OU event for the next 30 years, he's living in a dream. Like that's never going to happen. He'll never get to go back and hang out with his playoff teams or his Big 12 championship teams and not be hated for it.
I mean, I think this level of I don't know, hatred is slowly dissipated, but I probably still say I would be concerned, almost for his safety. I don't know if I feel that way now, but I certainly would have a couple of weeks ago.
He did this shit to himself, though. I mean, we talked about it in the immediate aftermath. He tried to burn the bitch down. If he wouldn't have tried to burn everything down and maybe handled it a little bit differently, I don't think there would have been anger, and it's just because of how passionate Oklahoma fans are. But from the outside looking in, he tried to gut the thing. And that's, I think, what rubbed so many people the wrong way.
I think it's that and the fact that he did
this.
And
it's just easy to go back to Kerry and say, like, he did not have a good relationship with the alumni. I'm surprised that it was as bad as it was.
He just didn't have a relationship with anyone. I mean, that's part of his biggest problem is he didn't make any effort to have a relationship, whether it's the alumni, the administration, the media, whoever. I mean, other than his players. I mean, Josh, I would go so far as to say, I don't know how good a personal relationship he even has with the people that coach for him, other than Dennis Simmons.
Guys, I know we've talked about it some in the in the war room and stuff like that, but there is. I keep hearing a lot of buzz that it has not been smooth sailing upon arrival. Like that, there is a lot of. I don't know the word for it, but it feels like that staff may not last long at Southern Cal.
Just think how awkward the whole thing is. I don't think that he realized his decision was going to affect so many other people's lives and uproot families and uproot what a lot of people, I think, on the old staff loved living in Norman about.
Yep.
And now you're moving them out to fucking Los Angeles?
You really, in some cases, you also ended a lot of people's jobs. I mean, it like support staff and stuff, like, because those people can't afford to move out to L.A. on what they pay. I mean, even some of the assistants, like, they're not really making the money that they were making here when you have to take in the cost of living and all that stuff. Like, being an assistant college coach at USC, not nearly as glamorous as being an assistant in the SEC or the Big 12, because the places you're living, you're making $250,000 a year. You're living like a king. You're not doing that in L.A.
No, you're barely above the poverty line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a totally different environment.
So it's great for Lincoln, but it's horrible for just about everybody else. I mean, horrible is a little bit of a stretch, but you know, you've changed the dynamic of their lives in a negative way.
And it kind of what Eddie was saying about, the staff liking living in Norman, beyond just cost of living, just liking, the town, the environment, the whole setup. Like,
well, I think we can say it now too, Josh. Like, as much as people talk about, Roy Manning playing both sides, Bill Bedenbaugh was kind of doing the same thing. Like, he didn't want to leave, kind of like Jamar Cain, but he didn't want to tell Lincoln he wasn't coming either. Like, he had to kind of string it out to make sure he was going to keep his job in Norman.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to know if he's got an offer. I mean, like that, and I think there are several guys that just were like, I'm just going to hang on as long as I possibly can because they didn't want to leave. Now, I think in certain cases you had guys that were like, well, if it's not going to be Oklahoma, it'll be somewhere else, but I'm not going to USC. So I think there was a little bit of both. But, guys, I mean, I think Bill is a really good example. I've heard a lot of people that I feel comfortable and that they would know. He and his family love Oklahoma. They love Norman. They love the whole thing.
I've been told he wants to retire here in Norman.
Absolutely. Like, I think there's a lot of comfort there, and I think there was an assumption by some, well, LA's got to be better. Guys, I live in Houston, and if you told somebody down in Houston that, like, you'd rather live in Oklahoma City, they'd be like, you're nuts. I'd rather live in Oklahoma City or Norman 1,000,000 times than Houston. Like, it's not once you leave it, you're like, oh, wow. It's really, like, there's a lot of stuff I miss about being there that I really enjoy that I didn't appreciate maybe when I lived there. And, I think people that travel as much as coaches have, and they've had different homes all over the country as they climb the ranks and do whatever, there's an appreciation for it. And I think, guys, I mean, it's crazy to me how much of that staff Brent Venables could have kept if he wanted to. Like, he could have kept, I mean, basically, if you weren't on that initial flight with Lincoln Riley, I think he could have kept almost everyone.
Josh, how tough do you think that made the early signing period for Bill? Because it seemed like he was the one where you just didn't know, and I felt like it showed up in the visit period.
I think you're right, Bob, and I think to his credit, Kerry kind of made, he was kind of the flip side of Roy Manning. I think Bill didn't want to be out there misrepresenting anything. As, I'm clearly here on behalf of OU until he knew. And that's when you saw him go in the home with Jake Taylor. And you saw him making the rounds because he knew then, okay, I'm in. We're good here. We're going to move forward. And I don't think there's any question. And people, I've had some people like, well, what's wrong? Like, why can't he close? Okay, last year, you want to get mad about that? Okay. I don't think there's any question OU put a lot of eggs in the Bryce Foster, Tristan Lee basket, and it burned them. And it, burned them bad. There's no other way to say it. This year, guys, I put something up on the board, and I don't know that I've really talked to you all about it. I was talking to a reporter that I respect a lot that was at Cam Dewberry's signing, and he said something that I had heard, that I had heard on a podcast, and so I hit him up, and I've known the guy a while, and I said, hey, I kind of got the read that you thought maybe OU led prior to all the Lincoln Riley stuff. And he goes, the kid didn't say it, but he kept talking about stability and how much he liked the stability at Oklahoma. And, it really kind of threw his whole recruitment into chaos when Lincoln Riley made that move. And so I I think OU might have gotten Cam Dewberry. I think they almost certainly would have gotten Malik Ogbo. And, guys, I mean, if you want to put that on Bill Bedenbaugh, I guess. I mean, that's it's up to you. But I don't know how you do. I mean, to land commitments in that scenario, how the hell do you do that? Now, you can, once everything solidifies and you can make a run at Jaden Gibson or Nick Evers and, everybody kind of knows the score, that's fine. But to keep in on a guy and be like, hey, just hang with me here, for elite guys like that are going to major Power 5 programs, man, that's a hell of a lot to ask.
Which is kind of rich that Cam Dewberry ends up at A&M, and now Josh Henson is going to join Lincoln Riley in Los Angeles.
That's an interesting. Guys, what do you think about him hiring an OC? I mean, something.
Well, is that a deal where?
Oh, it's a rubber stamp. It's a title, right, so they can pay him. There's no doubt.
That's kind of what I thought as well.
I guess we should get into what do we make of the DeMarco Murray stuff coming back up.
Is there any one of us that doesn't believe if OU just steps up and pays him that he'll leave? That he won't leave, I mean?
100%. I think if he leaves, it's on OU.
I'm fairly confident in saying that he does not want to leave.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he wouldn't, but you can't. I mean, it's a slap in the face to pay DeMarco Murray almost $350,000 less than a guy that has never coached before.
Yeah, I guess we have to be honest about that. That's from last year. I think it's pretty clear that there has been a lot of money swell that has come in, and once those guys get, the Bill Bedenbaughs, the DeMarco Murrays, those guys get their new contracts as well, I'm going to bet those numbers look very, very different. But you're right, Eddie. There's no way on earth with what DeMarco Murray is doing in recruiting and the way he fought for your program and did all the things that I don't think anybody else was really doing to his level. He's got to get paid. And he needs to be paid as one of the elite running backs coaches in the country, because I think you might have a real young kind of coaching superstar if you can cultivate and put the right things around him.
Yeah, I mean,
the worrisome thing is, I guess we just won't know until. I mean, surely we won't know about a contract until March, right? Because that's when the Board of Regents meets again.
Sure, but guys, does it feel like the momentum is kind of falling off? It felt like maybe Saturday, kind of into Sunday. Man, something this is coming up a lot, and all of a sudden things are kind of happening, and then it feels like somebody stepped in and was like, "Hey, when the time comes, we'll get this straight."
We talked about it on the board, and we also talked about it in the war room as well. But he's already told the guy once that he doesn't want to come. Yep. What changed in the last 2 weeks?
Exactly.
I
was told he offered him a different title. Did we lose Eddie?
No, I was just going to say, I was just waiting because it's remember, and I think that there is some validity to DeMarco kind of led the charge when everything went down. This guy, he screwed everybody over.
That's certainly what it felt like. Yeah,
I've talked to enough people that.
But I think
there's some validity to. I don't know if he called him out in the meeting like that text message said, but there was definitely he rallied the troops of the the guys that were being retained, the guys that had connections back to the University of Oklahoma.
I got to think that there's also a little bit of a really you couldn't get Tayshard Choice, so you want me now? It's
Yeah.
Although if they'd offered him before Tayshard Choice, then that probably is not an issue. But
as I understood it, Riley basically told every assistant that they're more than welcome to come.
But that was also my understanding. He did that to kind of force their hands.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, in the immediate aftermath,
which goes along with burning the place down.
Yeah, just completely the wrong way to handle that.
I don't know. I just think back to what we said at the start. I mean, look, if DeMarco leaves and goes to USC, it's a massive fail on the part of the OU athletic department, the administration, and Joe Castiglione.
Yeah. To me, I'm concerned about the conviction if something like that happens. And I know that sounds dramatic, but at some point you've got to stop letting good, talented coaches go elsewhere if you want to compete, and especially a guy that has made it so clear he wants to be there.
I'm almost to the point right now where I don't even, I guess in a way, think that it could remotely happen. But then again, I've been shocked and surprised before during this coaching cycle.
Shocked that there even was a coaching cycle, I think, is the main.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, but kind of as Eddie says, nothing should surprise anyone at this point about anything. I mean, maybe Lincoln Riley's coaching an NFL team next year.
Oh, he would never. He's building that into the Mecca.
Okay. We got to get a little bit of a hoops update. Sorry, Josh, but non-conference slate is over. Sooners did what they were supposed to do in the last couple of games. Bob, just kind of break it down. What are your feelings about this team as they head into conference play?
Love the defense. So many concerns on offense. So many concerns about who's going to step up in the clutch. So I thought Tanner Groves would be that guy, but Elijah Harkless time and time again. But if you can play defense like that, you're always going to be in it, at least. But, I mean, even last night was another example. They start 1 of 10 from 3.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do that in the Big 12 and, have a good success rate.
All right, basketball talk over, Josh. You survived.
Oh, I stepped away. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm here again. No.
They have
I listened the whole time.
Teams. It's going to be a fun conference year.
It is going to be kind of intriguing. Like, Elijah Harkless' development on the offensive end has been a little bit of a surprise. I think that what they've gotten out of Jordan Goldwire to a certain extent offensively has been a little bit of a surprise. They're going to have to shoot the 3 ball well, and I say Mo Gibson's going to have to shoot the 3 ball well.
Because once he gets going, the rest of the team kind of follows his lead, and defenses play them a lot differently when Mo is hitting compared to when Ethan Shagwa or Jalen Hill hit a random 3. It's a much different dynamic when it's Gibson.
I've been pleasantly surprised, too, with just what they've been able to get out of Shagwell, what they've been able to get out of a Bijan Cortez. Like, can those guys be solid in that second unit when you're playing a Baylor or a Kansas or a Texas? I think that's kind of what's going to separate them. And like you said, Bob, like 7 teams inside the top 70 in net rating is just incredible. Like, it's going to be a dogfight. They could go 8 and 11 and have a really good, would that be 8 and 10?
8 and 10, yeah.
And be really that's a strong year in conference play.
Yeah, I mean, if you hold serve when you're playing at home against, say just 2 of the 3 between like Baylor, Kansas, Texas, like you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. I mean, it'd be great if you can sneak in a road win against one of those ranked teams, but you had an Iowa State, and they've been the surprise of the entire country.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of chances to build that resume.
I don't even know if they're still undefeated or not.
They are.
Okay, so we know that Bijan got off to a slow start, with his injury to start the season. And you mentioned him, but is Shagwa the biggest surprise to you on this team?
I think the way he's embraced his role, because I think he had to know his role is going to be a lot different compared to SMU. And the fact he seems to be one of those first people like, all right, this is what I'm being asked to do. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability every single time. And that was the recruiting pitch by Moser. You can come back home and give it everything you've got for one season. And Ethan has done that time and time again. And that's where I think there were roles that you thought certain guys we're going to have in October. I think going into January, some of them have changed, and I think some of them still haven't been answered. But, like, who you thought Shagwell was going to be is exactly who he's been through the first part of the year.
Okay. I think that satisfies our contractual obligations for basketball.
It is kind of crazy that, like, Alonnis Williams is having an unbelievable year for Wake Forest. Like, he might be the ACC Player of the Year.
That's crazy.
The ACC also sucks. Did you guys see that tweet from Rothstein the other day?
About Duke not having to play a ranked team?
That's incredible.
Yep.
I've unfollowed all the national basketball writers. I can't take the sucking up.
There's a lot.
I still follow Rothstein. I got several college basketball follows. So here I win. Ha.
That's just so you can keep Bob in line if basketball recruiting ever hits.
When it goes crazy, yeah. Sure. I'm gonna run Bob's show on that one.
All right.
I hear there's basketball recruits, Bob.
Anything else you guys want to hit on? I mean, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holiday. It's been a fantastic year. It's been a crazy year. It's been a hectic, last month. Nobody cry for us. The growth of the site has been outstanding. And hopefully going to put that to good use. NIL will continue to grow. And I know, yes, get Danny Stutzman. Like, that's the one thing that I know you want Danny Stutzman. You don't have to tell me anymore. I know. I've already reached out. So don't worry. It's all being handled.
And you are not alone. There are members of this podcast that want Danny Stutzman as well. So all in.
Well, the question is who wants him the most? I think it's got to be Eddie.
A show with some large majority of Danny and Eddie that's comedic gold just waiting to happen.
And we'll have Michael Turk come in and baptize people halfway through.
Oh. I'm a little under the weather, Eddie. I can't be made to laugh without breaking into an enormous coughing fit, so that's just not cool. You gotta chill out.
Same. I think I'm dying.
I'm a little worried that Danny Stutzman show would somehow be the end of you.
There's only one person that can get suspended.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Next round's coming up. I don't know. We'll probably talk to Isaiah here again soon, I would imagine.
I know we referenced it earlier. Did we actually talk about Daniel Parker?
Yes.
I know we kind of should we? Do we get into that?
Well, just that he was a legitimate offer.
Yeah, okay. You're right.
I don't think we really talked about, you mentioned that he blocks a lot, I think, on the pod. Basically, we gave a pretty good synopsis.
Okay.
I mean, is there anything you want to add?
It just seems like it's a perfect fit for what they want. Like, doesn't it feel like Joe John, and I think that Gabe and Teddy hit towards this, they're kind of going to be moving away from that H-back role. They're moving back to more of a tight end role.
Yep. More dudes like Joe John, not the little, not. And I mean that is no offense to Jeremiah Hall or, any of the H-back type guys.
Are we going to get another Bubba Moses?
Well, there's only one Bubba Moses, okay?
Everyone knows that, yes.
I made a Bubba Moses joke in my Jason Llewellyn comparison. So, in my Where'd We Rank 2022 story. So, Jason Llewellyn has some Bubba Moses vibes. So I'm kind of into it. But yeah,
wasn't that golly, why can't I remember Ardmore?
Jermaine Gresham.
Wasn't that Jermaine Gresham's official visit when they played
when
that
they
there was
threw
only
him
one
seven
Bubba
balls?
Moses?
Yeah, I think it was a Bedlam game, if I remember right. And Bubba Moses had more catches that day than I think the rest of his career.
Right, yeah. He had the ball throw. He had more targets that day than he had the entire year, I think.
And it was just blatantly obvious what was happening. Let's see.
That was Chuck Long, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Jermaine was 06, so that would have been the 05 year. Was that Kevin's first year or was that Chuck's last year?
It was Chuck's last year because Sam has always said that Chuck Long did an in-home with them
Yeah, remember
on like a
because
Sunday night and took the San Diego State job Monday morning.
Wilson was there before Bomar got there, right when they came together, I think, because he was going to install the Northwestern offense for Rhett Bomar.
Yep.
And he was there before Bomar because he was working with his dad in high school to run that offense in high school so he'd be better at it when he got to college.
God.
They should have just hired Jerry.
If I say that's so Bomar, just from top to bottom, that's a Bomar choice all day.
He completely redid the offense for his son.
Yep, 100%. So he could be better prepared to play in college with almost no concern for what the talent on his own team said.
I am quite sure that.
I mean, who knows what would have happened? Bomar was awesome at the end of his freshman year.
Yeah,
Speaking
that Oregon
of
game.
Bowl.
That Oregon game, yeah.
Oh, guys, I could argue I felt better about Bomar going into his sophomore year than I did Rattler going into his.
There's no doubt the one thing I did to piss off Bob more than anything I'd ever done was calling Jerry Bomar for a statement after Jason White announced he was coming back for a 6th year. And Jerry just...
I'm sure that Jerry Bomar gave you one, too.
Oh, yeah. He was like, I don't know how we feel about this. It's like, we got to rethink some things. Bob did not like it.
It seems like the kind of thing he'd be totally cool with.
Yeah, I know. Why wouldn't he like that? I think he even went on the Sports Blitz and denounced me personally on that Sunday night show when people actually still watch Sunday night television shows.
Well, I've been denounced by Bob publicly, so we'll just start up little.
You've just been
group
chastised in person.
No, he talked about me in an Oklahoman story. You remember that? He called me a what was it? I for some reason I've got doppelganger in my head, but that's not right. It was basically like a lackey. Like I was just hanging around the practice taking notes of because you remember when we were standing up on top of that when they were on the practice field, and I had a notepad in my hand that I literally had not written anything on, and Anton Robinson saw me. It was like, hey, man, what's up? And, I was like, hey. And then Bob just looked at me and just shot needles through. And about 10 minutes later, I hear somebody you can't have a notepad here. You have to remove that notepad. And it was a whole friggin' thing. And it ended up being like a little blurb in some, note story in the Oklahoman, the next day.
Yeah, because he thought you were Kurt Smith. He thought, Kurt Smith was he would just puke everything out there on the internet, like how many run plays they had, how many pass plays they had, what the ratio to, how many third down, every little thing that they did in practice, he charted it, and then he just put it on the internet, and it drove Bob insane. And that's when he outlawed notebooks at practice.
Yep. I have never been simultaneously so pissed off and so scared at the same time. I was infuriated I was in that situation when he just torched me that day. And then at the same time, I was 19, 20, I was terrified. I thought this career that I was just getting started, and I was like, it's over. I am now hated by the most powerful man in OU football. I'm done.
Well, at least you didn't call him a dick.
No, I took it on the chin. I was not happy about it, but I mean, what the hell else was I going to do?
Let the record show. You weren't wrong.
All right, I think that's a good way to end it. Merry Christmas to everyone out there, you and your families. To you guys, Merry Christmas. I can't wait. I did get, Josh, I appreciate it. I did get pictures of your children in a field.
Absolutely. That was taken at a marsh.
The refrigerator.
If you can notice, there is some water in the background. That was taken near the Galveston area. So that's a little nice little bird sanctuary and marsh near the grandparents. So stopped on the side of the road and took some pictures. Worked out perfect.
I want next year's Christmas card to be at the ports. Just a bunch of trucks driving behind them, semis pulling in and out.
Nail it. Yeah, I'll have Laney operating a crane or something.
Big oil spill in the back.
Don't believe we got a Prisbillo Christmas card around here. I don't know what happened with mine.
Guess got lost in the mail. Mine as well, Ooh. And he's not even here to defend himself now, so this is perfect.
He took off.
Yeah, I said it says internet.
He lost his internet, I think.
Oh, okay. well, darn it, I feel bad now. I was busting his balls. Now it's just going to seem like I'm being an asshole since he's not here. So, anyway, that's good. We're good. Merry Christmas. I say repeat the same thing over and over at the end of stuff now. I'm getting old, I guess. Thank you for listening. Hope, be safe. We should say that as well. Do not drink and drive during the holidays. Drink and Uber. So please don't do that. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.